back to Atlanta Boxing Podcast. I am Joshua El Venenoso Rodriguez alongside the Quiet Riot. We want to thank everybody who's been showing us love so far in the first couple episodes. Make sure that you are subscribing to our social media, all forms: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Share it with everybody. Like it. Leave us comments and feedback because we really want you all to benefit from this, to enjoy it, and if anything, learn from it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Got a lot of information here today. First and foremost, we want to give a big shout out to the GOAT, Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely.
Birthday was just passed, January 17th. Very polarizing figure in boxing. Made sure that not only was he an elite boxer, but he was also a very polarizing figure when it came to the humanitarian efforts and his out of the ring persona and lifestyle. He was a 1960 heavyweight division Olympian and winner. You know, at 22 years old, he became the youngest heavyweight at that point in time. He beat monsters: Sonny Liston, Joe Frazier, George Foreman.
Yeah.
Was a heavyweight winner 3 times, had the title.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah. Big George in his prime was a monster, man. He was splitting heavy bags open. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, it's
to be
not
able to
something to take
yeah.
lightly.
Mhm.
What do you remember most about Muhammad Ali, and what did you appreciate about him?
I was a huge Muhammad Ali fan, man. You know me, man. I'm a big picture person, so I'm more about the deeper meaning behind things versus the surface level things. And everybody can self-proclaims himself as a goat, but I feel like he truly is a goat, not because of just what he did in the ring and his accolades in the ring, but also the things he did outside of the ring. You know what I mean? Being able to simultaneously get those accolades while at the same time having to face the adversity he had to face the whole time with the social injustices and racism, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean, eating in the ring, fighting people like Liston, things like that, man. So being able to, of course, don't let me forget about what I mean, in prison for refusing to go to war, things like that. Like he did a lot of stuff outside of the ring, man. That's admirable. So when it comes to being a goat of boxing, I'm definitely always going to put Ali at the top. You know what I'm saying? Even if I don't think he's the number one or the best fighter of all times, when we
Yeah.
talking about overall for the things he did in the ring and outside of the ring, he will always be number one.
You know, one thing that I'll say about Muhammad Ali, in my opinion, is right. He was a
Absolutely.
revolutionary figure. Obviously, you can see Bob Marley in the background. I'm a big fan of any kind of person that is for the betterment. Say what you want to about little nuances here and there about their personal character. Not everybody's perfect.
Right.
Nobody's an angel. For him to come from that perspective of Vietnam didn't do anything to him, right? Like they never,
Yeah.
like he said, they never dropped a bomb on him. They never attacked him. He's under attack in the States by
Yeah.
his own countrymen, right? And we can call it what it is as a racial issue. Um, for him to speak out at that point in time, obviously, I wasn't um, around to see him do that live, but
Hmm.
it resonates with me on a personal level. Um, and then, of course, what he did in the ring, you know, he was admired by so many people. Like obviously, like Bruce Lee. Like I was watching a special on Bruce Lee, how Bruce Lee used to watch tape on Muhammad Ali.
Right.
You know,
So like you said, the admiration he gained from everybody around the world was a lot of it was for just for what he did in the ring, because what he did in the ring was amazing. It was rare to see heavyweights with that type of hand speed and stuff like that, and those type of skills and the ability to move like he could. But again, it ain't even about what he did in the ring. It's more so about what he did outside of the ring. You know what I'm saying? He used his platform to influence other people in a positive way instead of using it for just himself.
absolutely. He was a humanitarian and an activist. So I think, you know, when you talk about guys like Muhammad Ali, and now what's going on in boxing, cheating, and that's something I think Muhammad Ali never was accused of, right? But there's a lot of
Right.
ways that boxers are cheating nowadays to get over. You know,
Absolutely.
we were watching a special on Luis Resto recently.
Hmm.
Their situation with steroids. Um,
I mean, obviously, Resto was one of the ones that was magnified, of course, when the prospect that he was fighting.
Yeah, Billy Collins.
Yeah, Billy Collins. But talk about Ali and Liston when, it was speculation that Liston had used some kind of ointment or something to actually rub on his gloves on his shoulders.
Oh yeah,
Or
that's
the
right.
trainer did to blind his opponents when he was fighting them, so that when they clinch up, it sweat and it'll get into their eyes and it'll blind them while they're fighting. So I mean, the cheating is not nothing new. It's stuff that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And but then it was a guy who came forward who was also I think his name, he was a contender back in the day. His name was Eddie Machin or Macon or something like that.
Okay.
He said he went through the same experience fighting, listening, being blinded by him
Oh
or
yeah.
something blinded him, yeah, during the fight. So you know what I mean. It's not nothing new. It's just there's so many different ways of doing it. It's just people find out different ways to do it as time goes on.
So back in those days, then did you see? What do you think they were using? Like, it was like a chemical, or was it like a?
Yeah, I mean, so according from what I looked up, man, I've learned about this situation because I try to look into these things when I hear them instead of just spewing off he say she say. But from my understanding, there, his cut man at the time, Joe Polino, he was rubbing some kind of medication or ointment on his shoulders, so that when they tie up in the midst of the fight, and the sweat gets on it, gets on his forehead and his eyes, it drips down into his eyes, and that's what's blind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like being shot in the face with menthol. Like it just.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. It's something like that, something along those lines. But that's just back then. But then you fast forward years ahead, and you got the Luis Resto situation and Panama Lewis.
Yeah.
He's fighting out Billy Collins, and he wasn't known as a knockout artist. You know what I'm saying? He was a light fisted puncher. You know what I mean? Back in the day, and all of a sudden he just punishes this guy for 10 rounds.
Right.
And it wasn't until the celebratory handshake when he tried to Collins' trainer tried to shake his hand, he realized his gloves was feeling kind of thin. So he's like, something's wrong with this. You know what I'm saying? So obviously the commission confiscated his gloves and everything. After further review, they figured out that some padding was taken out of his gloves. So he was damn near beating this dude barehanded the whole fight.
Yeah, like almost bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then
So-
when you look deeper into it, they showed that he had, he confessed to Panama Lewis, his trainer at the time, dipping his hands and dipping his wraps in plaster of Paris, which hardens up like a cast over time.
Oh snap!
So he was then essentially beating him with cast from his fist during the fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which ultimately ended that guy's career at the same time.
So let me ask you this then:
Mhm.
Wouldn't you have been able to notice? Obviously, you being in the ring, you wear the gloves, you get wrapped all the time.
Mhm.
Can't you tell? Like you feel it in your hands already when you're punching somebody. There's a difference the way the impact hits the opponent, right? So shouldn't he have known like immediately after the first round? Because I mean, obviously Billy Collins felt it in his face, but
Yeah.
couldn't
I'm
Resto
pretty
have
sure.
felt that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Resto felt the difference in his punching power and the impact he was having on Collins. But he was trying to win. He had the by any means necessary attitude at that time. So you know what I'm saying. And then a lot of times, man, fighters are conditioned to just go off of what the trainers and the handlers are saying to them. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, I mean, some cases I believe they do know what's going on, but a lot of times fighters just go with whatever they say. They're conditioned to believe that our jobs is just to fight. So that's all we doing, man, just fighting.
And just a word for the casual fan or those who aren't really in tune to what we're talking about. There was a fight in 1983 between Luis Resto and Billy Collins, and the controversy is that padding was removed from the gloves all the way back in 1983. Luis Resto was a fighter coming out of the Bronx where I grew up. Billy Collins was a kid from the South. Two totally different fighters that never really came together and met before, from what I understand, but it caused a lot of controversy. It changed both of their lives. And there's a special that's out there now. I can't remember if it's on Showtime, but I do recommend for everybody to go check that out. But you made something about the plaster perspective.
Yeah.
That's also something that happened with Antonio Margarito and Miguel Cotto.
Right, right. So there's many ways of cheating, man, in boxing. Like I said, you can go back to, like you said, the Sonny Liston, putting medication on his shoulders and stuff like that to rub into people's eyes. Then you got the tampering of the gloves. like Luis Restos pulling the pad out of his gloves and, putting the plaster on his hand wraps. And Margarito, like you said, and you also got the actual performance enhancement drugs, the PEDs, which is more common nowadays,
Yeah.
versus, the other stuff.
Steroids, man. We can't get rid of them in sports.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like the newest lately has been Kovalev. It seems like is tested positive. I think it said it was synthetic steroids they found in his blood on his
Yeah.
test. I mean synthetic testosterone. Excuse me. Um, so it's just a constant cycle, man. Everybody trying to get a competitive edge over the next man. So it pushes them to the point where steroids is our best opportunity for that.
So we've heard about that from steroids. We've heard about who else? Like Canelo Alvarez with what is it,
Yeah,
clenbuterol?
Canelo's another one, man. Canelo Alvarez tested positive as well. They blamed clenbuterol, I believe it was, and they blamed it on the meat he was getting. The meat he was getting in Mexico, the beef he had in Mexico had it in there. I just find it very hard to wrap
Just
my
eating
head
that
around.
beef, man, made him strong, huh?
Yeah, yeah, right. So I guess so. Yeah.
How
But
realistic is
then
that?
you got Big Baby Miller, Jarrell Miller, who failed
Yeah.
his twice as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, he tested positive twice for PEDs. I believe the substance was GW 1516. But it's funny that we talking about these two different dudes because they both tested positive, but it's two completely different punishments for it. You know what I'm saying?
Ah, yeah.
And I think that's a lot of being based off of where they're at in their careers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Canelo's the man in boxing right now, so he generates a lot of income for boxing.
Yeah,
So
so
Canelo
the
got
penalties would be different if it's based on how much they're going to sell tickets.
yeah, pretty much, and I mean that's completely wrong in my opinion.
Oh,
Like I
it is
said,
wrong.
Canelo he got a 6 month suspension, which is a slap on the wrist, and he's able to still fight again for that belt and everything else. As to where Jarrell Miller got a 2 year suspension and banned from boxing for 2 years.
Yeah.
Y'all both tested positive, but Canelo is the bigger draw.
And if I'm wrong, I want the fans to correct me on this too. I think, especially for my Cubanos, the heavyweight Luis Ortiz, I think he's actually was accused of doping as well a couple times, and I think he was
Yeah,
suspended maybe for a year. But
I had to look
it's so
into that.
predominant, right?
I can't remember exactly, but I had to look into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we said, Kovalev, Canelo, Big Baby Miller, you know what I'm saying? Luis Restos, Panama Lewis, these are all different. There's a lot more different people. These are just some of the highlighted in recent years, some of the ones that magnified a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, now they also going. What was it? Last year they were claiming that Tyson Fury tampered with his gloves as well for not when he knocked out Deontay Wilder. You see,
Oh,
granted, it's just
so
speculation.
yeah, yeah. Go
It's
ahead.
just
I'm sorry.
speculation. Just speculation hasn't been proven anything like that. But it's all kind of theories and conspiracy theories about why he stopped him and how he stopped him. He took the patent out of his gloves, whatever the case may be. I personally don't believe it. I just feel like it was a 6'9", 275-pound man putting pressure on another man that
Yeah.
couldn't stand it, and that's all. That's what happened,
All
man.
right, so let me ask you this then. That's something that I've been reviewing, and I was there. Like that happened. That fight happened like literally on my birthday last year, day before last year,
Yeah,
and we were all sitting around watching that fight. And to me, in my opinion, my eyes, I'm seeing a clinic, right? I'm seeing everything that's happening.
absolutely.
That Deontay was overwhelmed. Whatever that they talk about, the vest weighed too much. They say that whatever the case is.
Every
So is there a way that actually you can lace the boxing glove to flap off your hand? I mean, again, these hands are checked, right? Not just with the plaster, not just with the
right,
padding, but the way they
right.
lace it, right?
So, I mean, there's always tricks to the trade, man. I don't know everything, but there's trainers who know a little bit more about a little bit some things that can get away with some stuff. You know what I'm saying? I know some of the old tricks. I ain't gonna say them all out loud, but I do know some of them, right? Now,
I ain't no snitch.
I train heavyweights myself, so you also have to take into consideration the size of these heavyweights' hands going into these little 10-ounce gloves. So if it doesn't go all the way on there, like I got heavyweight right now, 6'3", 260, and his hand is a tight fit trying to get in these 10-ounce gloves. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine a man 6'9", you know what I mean, 275 trying to get his hand in these gloves as well, right?
Yeah.
And I've had other heavyweights I've dealt with the same and had the same issue. Now, if the hand is not going all the way down inside of their glove, that's not an uncommon thing. You get me? That's
Yeah.
just like, okay, it's a heavyweight, but we're gonna get as far as we can with these big dudes' hands. But for them to say, oh, his hand was flapping, so he didn't have his glove on like that, that's nonsense. I can show you another example of a dude who was on the B side actually fighting recently. And when they showed the fight in slow motion, he's throwing a punch. You can see his hand bend exactly
The same way.
identical to Tyson Fury's hand.
Okay.
Also, when you take it from the surface level again, you go back into it. Nevada is, I believe they fought Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, they fought in Nevada. So Nevada has probably the most strict boxing commissions of all.
Right.
So it can be very, very hard to get anything past these people and these boxing commissions. On top of that, at a fight of that magnitude, you always have, when they're getting their hands wrapped, you have one of the people from your team go into the other person's dressing room and watch them wrap their hands,
right,
to make sure that nothing crazy being done.
Right.
So you had one of your representatives over there watching Tyson Fury get his hands wrapped. If you seen something that was gone wrong, or he did something to his gloves, or whatever the case may be, y'all should have called it right then and there.
Right. So for the casual fan, right, they may not be aware of that. These commissions actually have somebody who's authorized to go into the back room prior to the fight. Like
absolutely.
And examine.
Not just the commission. Your opponent can send a representative from your team to go over and watch you get your hands wrapped.
That's true. That's true. So they have somebody from the other team to observe, make sure there's nothing wrong. They have a commission. They have everything that's checking this out. Could that have really slipped out? I mean, is there a way that really could have happened? I mean, I don't want to take anything away from either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, could it happen? Absolutely, but the chances that happening were extremely unlikely. That's just the reality of it.
Right.
Realistically, what happens is the fear factor that you had about your power that everybody's scared of in Bulk. Now Tyson Fury already felt it and realized he can overcome it, so he wasn't intimidated by it at all anymore. So he put the pressure on you. That's all.
So when you were fighting, cheating, you obviously saw some cheating. What do you think were some of the little tricks? Not too much. Obviously, you don't want to, put anybody on blast or anything like that. But how predominant did you see cheating happening while you were coming up in the ranks?
There's a few telltale signs about the PEDs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the main ones are the acne on the person's back, right? So anytime I seen acne on anybody's back, I'm like, they're probably taking something.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of other different things people did, man, but I ain't even gonna touch on that too much.
Yeah,
but that was one of the main things that I always recognized or noticed instantly. If this guy is punching extremely hard and he got acne on his back and he seems like he don't get tired, nothing like that, I know
that's one of the side effects. Yeah, that's definitely one of the side effects. I think that's another thing that when I was watching the special between about Luis Resto, how Panama would crush up a pill for asthma patients and put it in the water and give them this resurgence of they can breathe better and the oxygen is there and they just feel refreshed.
It gives them that extra lung capacity, man. Again, it's all for the fucking excuse my French, but it's all for the
we get a little passionate on Atlanta Boxing Podcast, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's all for that competitive edge, man. It's crazy. But yeah, he was inside of the water that he was giving him so that when he's drinking, it's giving him the extra lung capacity.
Yeah.
So that's another thing where they're ingesting different things in the corner. In the corner, you're supposed to have a see-through bottle. You're only allowed to drink water in that corner. So if you do anything outside of that, then it can be considered cheating, or you're probably cheating. Like you can go back to Tony Harrison versus Charlo in recent years, when Charlo was drinking out the green Gatorade bottle.
Right.
You supposed to be doing that, but that's another indicator that everybody's not perfect. People can slip up. Even the inspectors and the commission board, even the inspectors can slip up and not catch stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? They had an inspector right there ringside with him, but he didn't catch him or didn't pay attention to him pouring the water in his mouth out of the green Gatorade bottle.
What do they suspect was in that water?
Ain't no telling what could be in there, man.
Anything.
That's the thing about ingestion. So that's why they can see if there's something in there if it's in a clear bottle. But if you got a green bottle, they have no idea what's in that water bottle.
And I can tell you this from experience, right? I literally was at a fight at one of these local events here in Atlanta. I'm
Yeah,
not going to say which event it was.
yeah,
But I grabbed my bottle of water that I had for after a fight, and it had just one of those electrolyte tablets in there. So it
yeah.
changed the color of the water, right? I gave
Mhm.
him the bottle so the guy could have something to drink. One of the guys, the refs, the judges, excuse me, from USA Boxing came over to me. He goes, "Hey, man, I don't know what's in that bottle, but I want you to know next time, don't give him a bottle of anything that has a
Right.
different color. I could see through that clear bottle." And I was like, "It's just an electrolyte pill." And he was like, "Doesn't
Don't have
matter."
it. You can have that. You can't have that. You can only
Yeah.
have straight water, man. You can only have water in the corner. But like I said, because even whether you're cheating or not, it can be perceived as cheating. Because what are you trying to hide if you got a different color bottle, knowing that you got to have a clear bottle? You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But that goes along with, like I said, things being ingested in the corner and stuff like that. And it's also like another one we didn't touch on was the IVs.
Oh,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It's
yeah,
another
yeah.
thing that's frowned upon, and that's typically illegal in boxing, but people still do it, of course, because you think you're putting your body through all of this training and dehydrating to make a specific weight. But um, who knows what you're putting in there? You know what I'm saying? They can say that's just a saline. They were just putting water back in his body so he can rehydrate, but they can be putting some other extra electrolytes or anything else in your body. You see what
So
I'm
wait, is that
saying?
before a fight? During a fight? When I've never seen the IV before.
Yeah, that's typically after weigh-ins. When people dehydrate the bodies down to make weight, it's another way to rehydrate your body back up and replenish your
Ah,
body
okay.
with all the nutrients and things you lost during the dehydration period where you're cutting weight.
Right. You're trying to cut weight, you're sweating, you're using the sauna suit.
Yeah,
You just cut it down so fast.
you're pretty much depleting your body of everything.
Yeah.
So the electrolyte, I mean, the IV helps you put everything back in faster because realistically, you can't put everything right back into in your body. You can eat like a horse within the next hour, but it still takes time for your body to be able to put it all back where it needs to be at.
So from that perspective, right? Like long-term effects, right?
Hmm.
People actually taking PEDs, actually taking steroids. Like, what are the
Yeah,
long-term effects on the fighter itself? Because obviously, they're in this for the love, but they're also in it for monetary gain. They need to pay the bills, they need to feed their family, they need to eat.
right.
What's the overall long-term effects negatively, especially for people who they hear about steroids in sports all the time, but for a boxer, they could be cut like that, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is this. I mean, I don't know all of the physical long-term effects, but historically, ones I've seen the people that we've known who have um, done steroids or stuff, or whatever PEDs they use to get that competitive edge. Once they get off of that, they're not the same fighter anymore, no matter who it is. I mean, we'll go to Pacquiao, for instance. It was spectated that Pacquiao was
Yeah.
using PEDs when he was supposed to fight Floyd and all this case. You have to take into consideration. Now, I love Pacquiao, but I do truly personally believe he was on something because Pacquiao turned pro at 108, and he
Yeah.
wasn't knocking everybody out at 122, 117, all that stuff. But then when he gets to 147, he's knocking out all the top dogs at 147.
Yeah.
Something's fishy about that, right? But
Absolutely.
it was never proven. It was never proven. So you can't say, yeah, he did do it. That's just my personal opinion. I think he probably was on something realistically. But then once he stopped, he was fighting even lesser competitors and he wasn't stopping nobody no more. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't getting these knockouts no more like he was getting at this one point in time.
That's the thing, man. Like, I'm a huge fan of Pacquiao. I lived in the Philippines. I saw directly how much the Filipino people love this man. It's kind of
Yep,
like
that's right.
equivalent to Roberto Duran from Panama. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they were so in love with him. But I saw a rant that I never saw before recently from Floyd Mayweather talking about how the same thing. Like, he was moving up in the weight class and how small he was,
And still
and then
knocking
all of a
out.
sudden, he's just like this massive, ripped, chiseled Greek god going in, knocking everybody out. And
Mm-hmm.
he's really celebrated now as one of the pound for pound best fighters that ever lived. It
Mm-hmm.
Does that take away from the integrity of boxing? Because I mean, I hate to say it, as much as I love Pacquiao, does that mean he's kind of tainted the way like Barry Bonds was in baseball?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, granted, only to a certain extent because it hasn't been proven yet. But I mean, it's like okay, it's obvious, but it hasn't been proven. We can't convict him for it.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, scientifically, it just doesn't make sense. But at the same time, man, I believe a lot of dudes are doing this at the top level to stay competitive and to be able to have that competitive advantage realistically, man. But everybody just hasn't gotten caught yet. That's why it's such a normal thing that we seeing, and that's why the penalty is not as stiff as it should be. Because like I said, you get a slap on the wrist, you get 6 months suspension, you get a 2 year suspension, whatever the case may be, as opposed to making examples out of these dudes to make people not want to do it. You know what I'm saying? Also, I truly believe if you tied in with the right people, you're gonna get away with it anyway.
Mm.
Case
What
in
do you,
point,
what
I
do you
was
say,
a guy,
right people? What do you mean?
the powers that be in boxing, man. I don't want to say any specific names, but but I'll give an example, right? It was a fighter who had just signed with a specific promotion company years ago. And he literally had just signed with them. And once he signed with them, like within that month, he got popped with the PEDs. He had the belt at the time and everything. There was no penalty though.
Yeah.
He still got another fight. I think he was fined a little bit, but that was about it. He wasn't suspended or anything like that. He still fought. He lost, so I guess that was, I mean, him reaping what he sowed doing the BEDs and stuff. He went on to fight that fight, and it wasn't even for the title, so that he gets to maintain his title and keep his title because he was signed by this promoter. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by the powers that be. If you connected by the powers that be, you can kind of, slither through the cracks a little bit with this.
So that's kind of a catch 22 then, right? Like it's, if you're a fighter trying to make it big, where you're getting the elite fights, the A class fights, you're trying to get that promoter who can get you that fight, so you can have that big payday to take care of your family. There's only two options then, right? It's either you go that route with the big names and then potentially risk having to use PEDs, or you stay on the B side for the rest of your life and just work as hard as you possibly can, hoping for a dream.
Um,
I know, right?
yeah, man.
That's a hard place to be, I would imagine,
Yeah,
as a
man.
fighter.
I mean, it's become like a part of the game in a sense, man. Like part of the game, man. It's like, all right, once you get to this certain level, in order to be able to maintain and sustain at that level and be able to compete with these other dudes, if everybody else is doing it, you're like, all right, I got to do it too. You know what I'm saying? It's just again, some people get caught when they're doing it, and some people don't. They're more strategic about it. But I believe a huge portion of the people at the top are doing it, honestly.
Yeah. So then,
Especially, um, you know, in the foreign countries because it's more frowned upon over here than it is in other places.
yeah,
I got friends I mean who's been to other places that are fighters as well, been in camps with other people.
yeah,
And it's not frowned upon. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's normal for them.
yeah. I look at it from one perspective as this, right?
Yeah.
And I know I'm being partial, but the Cuban boxers in Cuba, limited resources. They don't have the. I'm pretty sure there's probably something going on a PED level, maybe, right? I can't say for sure, but generally speaking, you don't hear about that coming from the Cuban boxers. These
Mm-hmm.
guys have basically black beans and rice as their diet every single day,
Right.
and they have to just really work hard, and they stick to fundamentals and hoping, either from their Olympic dreams on the island or defecting and getting into the pros. I still don't hear about these that happening with those guys. So why do you think it's so much more predominant? Is it because, again, the finance, the money, the dollar signs that's attached to it?
Absolutely. It's that by any means necessary mentality. Like you said, when you're coming out of areas like Cuba and stuff like that, when your everyday diet is black beans and rice, and the only hope you have is getting out of there and being a boxing world champion. You are at the point where you're willing to do almost anything to get to that point.
Yeah,
What I mean, to put your family in a better position. So, yeah,
yeah,
man, I think that's what it is, and for most fighters, man, because most fighters come from poverty. You know what I'm saying? So when they get to that point, they feel like this is about to go away from them. You know what I'm saying, or whatever the case may be. I need this competitive edge. If I can't fight no more, I don't even have an identity.
yeah.
So I need to make sure I'm able to sustain and be able to compete.
Well, you said it
So
best
with
on our last podcast. You said boxing is a poor man's sport.
absolutely, absolutely,
So if you're hungry, you're gonna do whatever you can to eat.
absolutely. Or if that fear starts to kick in, that fear of going back to what you came from, that'll put you in a position where you're willing to do whatever to make sure you don't go there also.
So now that we see it from the inside, on the outside, casual fans or fanatics that enjoy watching the sport, why are we so judgmental of these guys using PEDs for sports, and why they sound so disappointed all the time? Like, I
Um,
get it. It's easy to say hard work pays off,
yeah,
but why are fans always so boisterous about their opinion that, oh, he shouldn't use PEDs?
yeah. So from a pugilist standpoint, right, I understand. I want it to be even playing field all the way across, right? And that's how we're going to truly see who the best is. Now, unfortunately, boxing is a business, man. So at the end of the day, it's about getting a competitive edge to make sure that your business succeeds. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Or your investment, which is the fighter, succeed. So
yeah,
if it means you have to, cheat a little bit to get there, then that's what it is. Some people are willing to take that risk. You know what I'm saying? In order to, to succeed in the sport of boxing. You
right,
know what I mean? But I think fans are so crucial on fighters and people who use PEDs because they don't understand it. They don't understand what it takes or what goes into this boxing thing, or they definitely don't understand the business side of it. To make yourself stay relevant, so that you're not put on the back burner and you're going back to the, the poverty or whatever you came from. Because again,
yeah,
the sidebar, fighters are typically not financially literate.
right,
So when they're getting these big checks, they're just going and blowing it and spending this money and wasting this money, not investing it to make it to set themselves up for the future. They're just spending this money, spending it. So now, if now they're not the fighter they used to be, because over time, boxing has some kind of effect on you. No matter who you are, it's going to have some kind of physical effect on you. But over time, and as you get older, you might lose this step a little bit, but you never invested that money, so you got to stay relevant. You know what I'm saying? So by saying if it takes all right to take some PEDs to stay relevant to be able to compete still, so you're not put on the back burner and put in position to be back poor or in poverty again, you willing to do that? You know what I'm saying? But again, the fans don't understand this aspect of
yeah.
it because it's just entertainment for them. So what they're looking at is, oh man, this guy's a cheater, da 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 da. But in reality, this guy's just trying to make a way to live. He's not cheating just because he wants to cheat or to try to kill somebody or do somebody wrong. It's more so the competitive edge so he can stay relevant.
Right.
Now, by no means am I being an advocate for cheating or steroids or
No, no, I get
PEDs
that.
or tampering with gloves or anything like that. I'm just giving a different perspective and saying I understand why some of these people do it. I
Yeah.
don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all, but I do understand to a certain extent why some of these guys might do this stuff. Also, again, a lot of these fighters, myself included, I was conditioned and we were conditioned at a time to just fight. You don't ask questions. You don't got to do. Your job is to fight. You let us take care of you. You fight. So some
Right.
of these fighters don't know what's being. They really don't know what's being put into their diets or what vitamins they're taking or
Yeah.
being told to take. They don't know that they're taking a PED or something, a banned
Right.
substance or
Any kind
something
of
like that.
banned substance. Yeah.
They're being told that it's a vitamin, so they're taking it and they're working out. It's natural. It's all good. It's a vitamin. It's going to help you with your
It's
wind
gonna
or
help
boost
you. It's
your
gonna
mood.
help you. Period. Right.
Yeah, it's
That's
going
the
to
main
help you.
thing.
And as a fighter, you're like, all right, bet I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that. You know what I mean? But again, that's because fighters are conditioned to just fight. That's it. You let other people handle your affairs and you just fight. But that's also why historically a lot of fighters are at the end of their career messed up, not necessarily physically, but financially and mentally, whatever, because at no time were they using their own mind. They was just always doing what somebody else told them to do.
Yeah. That's. I mean, that's a solid point. I mean, that's a great point, because I mean that was one of the things that people don't get as a fan, right? Like when you are
Yeah,
competing at a
right.
professional level, right? I mean, or even at any high level that may not be professional. You
Respect.
could be an aficionado, you could be anything that's highly competitive, and you
Mm-hmm.
hire someone, you
Mm-hmm.
spend money on someone to say, get me ready for this fight.
Yeah,
They're going to listen to everything because they're trusting the person they're investing in to
right.
provide them with the best possible outcome and do whatever it is it takes to in order to be successful at that competition, right? So if it's the training regimen, it's the diet they're eating, it's the supplements they're taking, they don't know until they've actually done it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had to change, like
Absolutely.
for me when I was doing my amateur fight, like it was I had to change my eating habits completely, right? And I had to change the way I worked out. So I had to do all of that, and it was completely different. And when somebody, comes up to me and goes, "You look so skinny. You look unhealthy."
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
You
you
get it
don't.
a lot.
It's not because I am skinny or unhealthy. It's because I'm doing something different to be
Yeah,
a better fighter, to be as successful as I can.
and
And they
making
haven't
these
been through it.
sacrifices. Yeah, exactly. Regular spectator, or the typical fan. I mean, but me personally, I don't necessarily value their opinions too much. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that, but and the only reason is because of course, because you haven't done those things. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
yeah,
somebody can say something about me, oh man, your record was bad. No, 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 no. You couldn't fight. You have no idea about what really happened in my
yeah,
boxing career. So,
yeah.
or the type of things I had to go through, or whatever the case may be, or the fights that I got robbed on, or you know what I mean, how the politics affected me in boxing. You have no
Exactly,
idea. So
exactly.
I can't value that. I can't value what you're saying because I understand that your knowledge of this is like almost not even there at all.
Yeah,
So I don't care
yeah,
how good you were, how long you did it. At
yeah,
some point, if you're steady, if you're constantly fighting other top dogs, you challenging yourself, some of these challenges you're gonna lose.
yeah.
That's just the reality of it. Now,
I,
the only way to stay perfect is if you don't challenge yourself, but that's a whole nother thing we can go into. But you know, you get
yeah,
what I'm saying.
that's another topic we can talk about for another day. And I think the fans actually can appreciate maybe a little bit more from this perspective of how it is to actually be there. I would tell anybody who's looking to get into boxing, no matter what age, no matter what sports you've been in, if you've never had any athletic background or been in sports at all, it's something you really have to take serious into consideration if you want to step into that ring, because whatever level you're at, you like we said before, you play football, you play tennis, but you don't play
Mhm.
boxing. I mean, I was sparring the other day. I mean, I got caught, so I can't deny it, man. Hey, that's part of the game, right?
Everybody gets hit. Everybody's gonna get lumps and bruises. It's boxing. That's the name of the game.
Yep, right on. I agree with you. So we'll close with that, I guess. I mean, I think one of the things that I want everybody to remember is always maintain the integrity of everything you do, because Muhammad Ali, as a champion, showed great integrity in all perspectives, inside, outside the ring, for all humankind. And one of his quotes that will stand out the most is, "I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion." So
Mhm.
remember that. Tune into Atlanta Boxing Podcast. We appreciate that you guys could join us again. We always want to bring forth the best product that's possible to you. We want to give a shout out, of course, to my man Christian Steele at Quiet Riot, C Steele Boxing. Oh, and by the way, if you know anybody that wants to be a part of the podcast, if you know any boxers in Atlanta or the Southeast or anywhere for that matter, that want to be a part of this podcast, send them to us directly. It's realatlantaboxing@gmail.com. They can reach out to me directly and we'll respond to them. And the hashtag ATL Box, that's going to be available on all of platforms as well. Come check us out and welcome to our corner. We'll see you the next time.